Number 8. A bloodbath. On August 9th, 1969, Sharon Tate's house was discovered full of dead bodies by her maid the morning after a night out. 26-year-old Tate, who was pregnant and waiting for the return of her husband, Roman Polanski, declined an invitation to a small celebratory dinner party. Instead, she went to have a quick meal at El Coyote, her favorite restaurant, with her friends Jay Sebring, Wojciech Frykowski, and Abigail Folger. At around 10:30 p.m., the group got back to Sharon's house at 10050 Cielo Drive. The morning after that, when the maid got there for her cleaning duties, she saw a horrifying scene. Dead bodies were scattered throughout the house and the surrounding grounds, creating a gruesome scene. It turned out that sometime during the night, under the influence of LSD, 4 of Charles Manson's followers, Tex Watson, Sean Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Linda Kasabian, drove to Shannon's estate. They bypassed the locked security gate by climbing the walls, cut the telephone lines by scaling a telephone pole, and made their way down the dimly lit driveway towards the house. Kasabian remained outside the security gate, serving as a lookout. As the trio got into the house, they met Steve Parent, a friend of the housekeeper who was leaving the property in his car. Watson, armed with a knife, attacked Parent, slashing him and shooting him 4 times at close range in the face. After entering the house, the intruders slit a screen, and Tex Watson crawled inside, assisted by the girls. They herded all the people into the living room, lining them up in front of the fireplace as if preparing a firing squad. A struggle ensued, during which Jay Sebring was shot. Chaos erupted, and everyone began to flee and fight back. Wojciech Frykowski escaped through the front door, but was quickly caught. He was shot twice, stabbed 51 times, and subjected to more than a dozen blows to the head with the butt of a pistol. Abigail Folger tried to escape through the back bedroom door, but was captured on the lawn, where she was stabbed 28 times. She lay on the grass in her white dress, which was now drenched in her own blood. Inside the house, Sharon Tate and Jay Sebring were bound together by a white cord tied around their necks, which stretched over a high ceiling beam. Sebring had been shot in the face and stabbed 7 times, while Sharon had endured 16 stab wounds to her neck and chest. As Sharon was being attacked, she pleaded with her assailants to spare the life of her unborn child, but her desperate pleas were met with cold-hearted disdain. The word pig was scrawled in Shannon's blood on the front door, a clear reference to Manson's belief that he was targeting the establishment symbolized by Sharon Tate. Manson and his followers were eventually caught by law enforcement. Their arrest happened during an investigation into a car theft ring, which led authorities to the Span Ranch. Manson was finally arrested on October 12, 1969, at the Barker Ranch. Eventually, the Manson gang was convicted for their heinous crimes against humanity and received sentences. Originally, all 4 were condemned to face the California gas chamber. But on February 18, 1972, the California State Supreme Court abolished the death penalty, deeming it a cruel and unusual punishment. As a result, Charles Manson and his gang were sentenced to life in prison. Despite being eligible for parole, Manson has been denied parole for the 11th consecutive time, most recently in 2007. Number 7. The Great Mystery. On July 15, 1997, early in the morning, the world's most renowned fashion designer was murdered in cold blood. On the fateful day, 50-year-old Gianni Versace woke up in Casa Casuarina, a stunning Mediterranean-style mansion nestled at 1116 Ocean Drive in Miami Beach. He had been yearning for some well-deserved relaxation, and fresh off a triumphant showcase of his Atelier Versace Fall 1997 couture collection in Paris, he was basking in the glow of success. Eager to unwind with his longtime partner of 11 years, Antonio D'Amico, Versace set out for a leisurely morning. Around 8:30 a.m., as was his routine, he went on a stroll to the News Cafe, located just 0.3 miles south of where he was living. Sporting a simple white t-shirt, black shorts and sandals, Versace made his way down the street. Arriving back at his mansion only 30 minutes later, Versace began opening the gates to his residence. Antonio D'Amico was relaxing on the veranda near the entrance at the time. But before Versace could step inside, a stranger emerged. This unknown assailant, dressed in a grey t-shirt, black shorts and a white cap, carried a backpack and held a .40 caliber handgun. He fired 2 bullets at point-blank range into the back of the iconic designer's head. Eyewitness Eddie Bianchi, who happened to be at an inline skating shop nearby, ran toward the sound of gunshots. Recounting the harrowing experience to the New York Times, he explained how there was blood everywhere, and after a final shake his body gave up and he stopped moving. Versace was taken to the Ryder Trauma Center at Jackson Memorial Hospital, 7 miles away in Miami. But despite the efforts of medical professionals, by 9:15 a.m., the designer was pronounced dead at the age of 50. 27-year-old Andrew Cunanan was later identified as the killer. He was a Filipino-Italian-American and grew up in San Diego. Despite his troubled circumstances, Cunanan was an intelligent man and driven by a desire for a luxurious lifestyle. He often went for relationships with older, affluent men. One of the mysteries surrounding Cunanan's life is whether he had any connection to Gianni Versace. While some sources claim that Cunanan and Versace had crossed paths in San Francisco years before the tragic shooting in 1997, the Versace family denied any prior relation. But Cunanan went on a violent rampage in the spring of 1997, committing 4 murders between April 27th and May 9th. His heinous murder spree made him the FBI's most wanted fugitive. Cunanan had been living in Miami since May 12th at the Normandy Plaza, located 4 miles away from the Versace mansion. He lived a double life during this period, alternating between dressing up and enjoying the vibrant nightlife of Miami and getting into mundane activities, such as indulging in pizza and purchasing books and pornography magazines. The day Cunanan checked out of the Normandy Plaza, he launched his attack. Eyewitnesses who were near the shooting saw Cunanan fleeing the scene. The clothes he was wearing during the crime were discovered near a red truck in a parking garage. On July 23, 1997, a police team tracked down Cunanan's hiding place, a houseboat in the Miami area. At the time, he was trying to flee the country. As the authorities closed in on him, Cunanan ended his own life, ending the manhunt once and for all. Number 6. Friends turned enemies. On March 31, 1995, a world-famous singer was shot in the back and killed on the spot by someone she knew very well. 23-year-old Selena Quintanilla Perez knew 30-year-old Yolanda Saldivia very well. Interestingly, she was also the president of Selena's fan club and developed a close relationship not only with Selena, but also with the entire Quintanilla family. Selena first encountered Yolanda in 1991. Yolanda, a newly licensed nurse from San Antonio, Texas, was a massive fan of the singer. Despite being 11 years older than her idol, she expressed an intense passion for Selena. Yolanda even reached out to Selena's father and manager, Abraham Isaac Quintanilla Jr., seeking permission to put up a fan club, which she ultimately became the leader of. Under Yolanda's management, the fan club gathered over 1,500 members, and Yolanda dedicated herself to promoting Selena's career and would always be by her side during visits to Texas. She even became the manager of Selena's fashion boutiques, solidifying her position in the singer's life. But what started as a seemingly loving relationship soon turned toxic, as Yolanda's obsession with Selena became a lot more intense. Yolanda's infatuation with the singer became questionable at one point. Despite the growing toxicity, the friendship between Selena and Yolanda endured for several years, until Yolanda's fixation led to Selena's tragic demise. On March 30th, 1995, Yolanda checked into a local Days Inn in Corpus Christi, Texas, and reached out to Selena, asking her for a meeting. Leading up to this day, there had been mounting concerns about Yolanda's handling of the finances within the Selena fan club. These concerns were raised by Abraham and eventually by Selena herself. After checking into the motel, Yolanda and Selena met, and an argument ensued over the disputed financial documents. As Selena was on her way to leave the motel room, Yolanda, fueled by anger, pulled out a .38 revolver and shot Selena in the back, inflicting a fatal wound. Selena was rushed to the Corpus Christi Memorial Hospital, but despite the medical team's efforts to save her, the bullet had cut an artery, causing Selena to give into hypovolemic shock. Her death was officially pronounced at 1:05 p.m. 2 weeks after her passing, on April 12, 1995. Then Texas Governor George W. Bush commemorated the late singer by declaring her birthday Selena Day in the state of Texas. After the shooting, Yolanda was in a standoff with the police for 9 whole hours as she negotiated with the authorities with a gun pressed to her head. On October 15, 1995, Yolanda went to trial, and on October 24th she was charged with first-degree murder and given a life sentence. She will be eligible for parole in 2025 to 2030. Number 5. An unhealthy obsession. On June 10, 2016, a singer died after being shot in the head and the chest. The tragic death of singer 22-year-old Christina Grimmie was a mystery, with very little known of the shooter's motive. But several of her co-workers believe that 27-year-old Kevin Loibl was obsessively infatuated with the talented singer from The Voice. Loibl's family claimed he had no history of mental illness, yet he lived isolated from everyone else, often described as a hermit. His bedroom windows were covered with aluminium foil and heavy curtains because he disliked light. Although Loibl had no prior criminal record, St. Petersburg police had responded to a domestic disturbance involving Kevin and his father's girlfriend in 2014 at their residence. Loibl had 2 guns in his possession at the time of the murder-suicide, which he legally purchased just days before he fatally shot Grimmie while she was signing autographs after one of her shows. He got 2 different models of Glock 9mm handguns after going through the usual 5-day waiting period. The first purchase occurred on May 31st and the second on June 7th, 2016, just 3 days before the incident. Several people observed that Loibl's behavior had changed before the incident. He had lost a lot of weight, undergone LASIK eye surgery, whitened his teeth, and received hair implants, all for the sake of Grimmie. About 2 months before Grimmie's killing, people around him realized that Loibl's infatuation with the singer had become unhealthy and abnormal, even though he had never met her. On the evening of June 10th, Grimmie had just finished her performance at a venue in Orlando, Florida. As she was out meeting her fans, Loibl suddenly opened fire. He shot her 3 times and inflicted fatal injuries, and the crowd instantly dispersed in chaos. Christina's brother Marcus Grimmie intervened, tackling the assailant to the ground, which saved the lives of everyone else who would have been killed in the attack. But then Loibl chose to take his own life shortly after murdering Grimmie, leaving no room for investigation. What do you think Loibl would have been sentenced to had he not killed himself? Let us know in the comments below and hit subscribe while you're at it. Number 4. Buried underground. On May 22nd, 2023, a soap opera actor who was missing for over 5 months was found dead, with his body brutally disposed of. According to authorities, the lifeless body of 44-year-old Jefferson Machado was found bound and concealed within a wooden chest encased in concrete and buried around 6 feet deep in the backyard of a house in the Campo Grande neighborhood. Jairo Magalhães, the family's lawyer, shared more details explaining that Machado's hands were tied behind his head and he was buried in a trunk exactly like the ones found in his own home. What's more, the lawyer mentioned that the body had a visible line on the neck, which confirmed that the victim had been strangled. They identified the corpse through his fingerprints. Footage of the police at work showed them unearthing the trunk, a task that required 9 people to accomplish. While the investigation is still ongoing, authorities are putting their attention on a man who had been renting the property where they found the victim's body. The unidentified suspect personally knew Machado and was last seen entering the house around a month before the body's discovery. Machado, a Rio native, first went missing in January. He was last seen in Campo Grande, but nobody knew where he was. Machado's family only got to know about his disappearance when an NGO contacted them to tell them that his 8 dogs were abandoned at his house. Over the next few months, the family got text messages from someone who was pretending to be Machado. There were numerous spelling errors in the messages, and his tone was entirely different from how the actor usually behaved. Machado's mother, Maria das Dores, noted how her son wasn't calling her on the phone, and the killer told her that he couldn't call because he had dropped his phone inside the toilet. Machado's cloud password was changed and his location tracking function was disabled, which raised the alarms for his family. As of now, the authorities are trying to find evidence to make an arrest. Number 3. A legend lost. On December 8, 1980, the Beatles singer was brutally murdered on the steps outside his own home. 40-year-old John Lennon was ruthlessly killed in New York. On that fateful evening, after finishing a radio interview, Lennon and his wife Yoko Ono left their house, the Dakota, at around 5 p.m. They were headed toward Hit Factory, a studio located across town. As the couple made their way through the usual crowd of fans that had gathered outside the Dakota, one admirer offered Lennon a copy of the new album Double Fantasy, and he kindly signed the sleeve. Little did Lennon know that his fan, 25-year-old Mark David Chapman, would soon become his assassin. Born in Texas, Chapman was residing in Hawaii with his wife Gloria in 1980. He had become a Beatles fan during his teenage years, but as a born-again Christian, he was deeply offended by John Lennon's remark in 1966 that the Beatles were more popular than Jesus. Chapman's feelings only grew stronger when the musician resurfaced in the media in 1980. He could not comprehend how someone who preached messages of love and peace could live as a wealthy millionaire in New York. Chapman first traveled to New York in October 1980 to kill Lennon, but something changed his mind and he returned home. But when he arrived in New York again on December 6th, armed with a .38 caliber revolver, nothing would deter him from carrying out his horrific mission. Chapman left his belongings at a hotel. Throughout December 8th, Chapman joined the group of Beatles devotees gathered outside the Dakota building, hoping for a glimpse of their idol. He missed Lennon's early morning arrival at the apartment, but had the opportunity to see Lennon's son Sean come in later with his nanny. When Lennon signed Chapman's album as he left the building that evening, the assassin was caught up in the excitement of meeting a Beatle. But as the evening progressed, his mood changed dramatically. At 10:50 p.m., Lennon and Yoko Ono returned to the Dakota in their limousine after a successful recording session. After the couple walked across the pavement and through the archway leading to the building's entrance, tragedy struck. Chapman fired 5 hollow-point bullets from his revolver into Lennon's back. The bullets exploded into fragments upon impact, causing maximum damage. Wounded, Lennon stumbled into the entrance of the Dakota, where the doorman Jose Perdomo rushed to help. Chapman took his coat off and stood under a lamp, and when he was asked about what he had done, he confessed to shooting John Lennon. He pleaded guilty to first-degree murder in court and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. In 2022, 42-year-old Chapman was up for parole for the 20th time, but he was denied. As of now, he remains in prison. Number 2. The Wrong Man. On November 1st, 2022, a 33-year-old man fatally shot an Atlanta rapper in the head and back while more than 30 people were leaving a private party at a bowling center in Atlanta. 28-year-old Takeoff was shot after a disagreement over a high-stakes game of dice, but the rapper was not involved and was only an innocent bystander. 33-year-old Patrick Xavier Clark, the suspect in custody, had his court appearance originally set for March 9, 2023, postponed until May 22nd. Clark was arrested on December 1st, one day after another individual was charged in connection with the November 1st shooting. He was found on the east side of Houston, almost a month after Takeoff was shot and killed at a private event. At the time of the shooting, Takeoff was unarmed and was not involved in the fight. According to prosecutors, shortly after the killing, Clark applied for an expedited passport, which he got immediately before his arrest. When Clark was taken in, he was found to have a lot of cash. Prosecutors also made additional requests, including that Clark surrender any passports, visas, or travel documents, remain within the immediate vicinity of Harris County, and adhere to a curfew. During a media conference, Letisa Quiones expressed surprise and disappointment at the decision, stating that her office had complied with all the requirements set forth by the judge. However, she remained confident in Clark's innocence and emphasized that the fight to prove it was not over. The suspect, who is charged with murder in the death of Migos member Takeoff, was able to post the $1 million bond and was released from jail in May 2023. As of now, his trial is ongoing. Number 1. The Deadly Robbery. On June 18, 2018, 3 men killed a rapper in the middle of an ambush robbery. 20-year-old XXXTentacion fell victim to a brutal murder, and after more than a week of deliberation, a Florida jury convicted 27-year-old Michael Boatwright, 26-year-old Derek Williams, and 24-year-old Trayvon Newsom. All 3 were charged with first-degree murder in connection to the death. Another suspect, Robert Allen, had previously pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. XXXTentacion, whose real name was Jason Froy, was shot in broad daylight in Florida. He was leaving a motorcycle shop when 2 masked gunmen armed with firearms came up to him and asked for his belongings. The struggle lasted 45 seconds, and at least one of the assailants shot the rapper. The suspects then took a Louis Vuitton bag containing $50,000 in cash, which the rapper had recently withdrawn from the bank, before fleeing the scene in an SUV. Throughout the trial, Boatwright's defense lawyer argued that his client's DNA was not found on XXXTentacion's body. Interestingly, the DNA of the other 2 men did not match either. During closing arguments, attorney Joseph Kimmock asserted that the person with whom the rapper struggled was not present in the courtroom. Robert Allen, the 4th suspect, had testified against the other 3 after pleading guilty the previous year. Attorneys for the remaining suspects challenged Allen's credibility, claiming that he had lied about their client's involvement in the robbery and death. They contended that investigators mishandled the case and failed to consider alternative suspects. Lead prosecutor Pascal Achille argued that the absence of DNA evidence was irrelevant, as cell phone data showed that the 3 men were together near the motorcycle shop when the rapper was murdered. Achille also highlighted Bluetooth data, which showed that the accused individuals were in the SUV used by the shooters during the same period. Surveillance footage from the motorcycle shop and cell phone videos taken by the defendants hours after the killing showed them flaunting large sums of money as well. XXXTentacion's music talked about depression, loneliness, abandonment, and suicide. The rising rap artist achieved platinum-selling success, but also faced controversies throughout his short career. He was plagued by allegations of domestic violence and was confronting 15 felony charges at the time of his death, including aggravated battery of a pregnant woman, domestic battery by strangulation, and witness tampering. His song Look at Me gained popularity on SoundCloud and later reached number 34 on the Billboard Hot 100. Following his untimely demise, many of his tracks went up the charts in the UK and the US, and his memorial was attended by thousands of grieving fans. The potential consequences for the 3 convicted men include a life sentence behind bars. Which of these celebrity murders was the most brutal for you? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.